Second area what we're looking at is Koolzuid. Oh yeah, this thing. And Chandra, I think, is going to introduce that group. And very curious about this one because we've been working on an urban lab for several years and kind of got stuck at some point at a conclusion. And perhaps you can open it up a bit. So.
Absolutely. Hi everyone, I'm Chandra Rouse and I'm a research assistant at the Harvard Graduate School of Design's Just City Lab. And as we heard, our neighborhood is Koolzuid, and we're going to hear, over the past week we've heard a lot about the threats that exist with the impending development, but our team believes that there's a lot of opportunities to actually address some of the tensions instead of exacerbate them. And so we're going to hear about those reflections.
Yeah. Hello, also from my side. It was really great working 1 week on this neighborhood, looking into it, diving into it, and I think we all appreciate it. But who are we? So I'm Andre. I'm studying at EUC at the Erasmus University College, and I'm from South Tyrol, a really rural area. I'm coming from a village like 150 inhabitants, and we're going to pass the mic.
Martine, I'm doing the Master Learning and Innovation. I'm from Rotterdam and from Vreewijk. It's a very green neighborhood. It was very, bonding.
Hi, I'm Sitare and I study Master Architecture at TU Delft. I live in Delft now, but originally I'm from Kerkrade, which is in the deep down south of Limburg.
I'm Izzy Ramos. I was born and raised in the city. I do a double degree in arts, culture, and the art academy as well. And I was raised in I moved around a lot, but I was raised in the west of Rotterdam, which is kind of a bold neighborhood, and yeah, that's kind of changing now.
So yeah, we got some quite contrasting views here, like someone coming from a city, someone coming from a really rural area. But nonetheless, we found some shared values which driven the process, which have always been in the back of our minds. So pride, trust, inclusion, security, and happiness. We also saw the diversity between city and the rural areas. And then we moved on. We went into the site. We looked into what's happening there. So what we saw is there's this community, people getting together. There's this major playground with a couple of schools being there, people coming together, not only from the neighborhood, but also from outside the neighborhood. There's the street art. There's this demolishment for the new buildings already coming in. So you already physically see what's going to be there, that there's going to be some change. And also the dead ends. There are a lot of really weird places where there's nothing happening. So we wanted to address that as well. And then we mapped that. We put the pictures we made on a map. We drew, we thought about what's just at this place, what's unjust in this place, what are the future challenges with the new towers coming in. So we saw that there's this exchange happening, there's this city life, there are these quiet spaces nonetheless, so really contrasting. There's this us feeling, people going there together to school, of course. But there's also this form of segregation. There's a private school, there's a public school. You see that. But you can also anticipate there are going to be these towers. And they're going to be really different from what's currently happening there. And there could be a potential segregation. There could be a potential lack of access to these towers for the surrounding neighborhood. There could be this them versus us feeling. If you look up the towers, or maybe the people look down, it could create this tension. That was mainly the point we wanted to address. So where are we context-wise? We're really in the city center. And nonetheless, we saw it in the pictures that it's green, quiet spaces. And that's something we wanted to preserve. We felt there's a certain vibe there. Looking into the context again, also income distribution. If we look at the graph up there, where we see the distribution of the income, it's higher in Koolzuid. The affluent people are more prone to live there. Also, the middle class is more prone to live in Koolzuid, and that's gonna change with the new buildings, with the new towers. There's gonna be a large influx of new people, and we can imagine they're gonna be affluent as well if we look at the prices flats are traded there. And again, looking into the inhabitants, it's really diverse. Also looking at if they are from Western countries or non-Western countries. We see this diversity, and that's something we wanted to keep in our ideas. That's then also represented in the challenges we see, and I think we already talked about it. And what we heard on the ground is that there's a lack of healthcare. Apparently there are not enough GPs there, so that's also something we kept in our mind, but we connected it with the values and come up with innovative solutions for that. So the values we decided are most important are community, pride, inspiration, empowerment, and inclusion. And from that, we developed guiding questions, guiding principles. And addressing the first guiding question, we made a manifesto. Co-South will change its face. Many new residents lead to an influx of new perspectives, claiming their space, raising questions on ownership. The municipality ought to secure transculturality, meaningful community interaction, making builders take responsibility to make spaces open and inviting, healthy and beautiful. We demand policy that fights segregation. We imagine a Co-South where people feel empowered and inspiration to engage, feel included to participate, share and care. So these have been our base values expressed in a strong manifesto. And how can we address the first guiding question? How can we incentivize developers to actually follow this? We need to have a policy on municipal level which clearly says if you build a building and you benefit from having a nice neighborhood, because if you have a nice neighborhood, you can sell your flats for more money, then you should contribute to this neighborhood as well. And you should be making a plan what to do. And we made such a plan, so we developed 4 different initiatives: the interactive tower, the walking tour, the pop-up healthcare, and Coal Island. So we're gonna look into the first step now.
Thank you, André. So how can we reimagine the boundary between the public and the private? That was our main question. One of the things, the tower, the first one of the 3 they're going to build, this is going to be the biggest one. It's 150 meters high. It will be having a very there are a lack of benefits for the neighborhoods within the tower. So there will be built a big tower. The area will be more people. The rent may rise, but they can't do nothing with the tower. So all the spaces that they have within the tower are only for the new residents and not for the people who already live there. So what we want to achieve is the community interaction, inspiration, and the population served is the old people already living in the neighborhood and the new ones, to make a connection. So we could have some physical interventions. For example, a rooftop, a climbing wall, an art studio where artists in residence could stay. The artists in residence could make like interventions for the neighborhood, and they could communicate with all the people living there. You could like have a community kitchen and even like a swimming pool that is for like 1 day a week or something, or 1 day a month, also available for other people out of the tower. And then we had like a programming for like a neighbor day. So that you have not a Labor Day, but a neighbor day that's for, let's say, to start with every first Thursday of the month, neighbors will exchange talents, views, everything you can imagine. That also led to a policy intervention for the municipal or architects. So to think about how the new towers would interact with the neighborhood. For example, I talked to the architect of the V8, the architect of this building, and they said they did not really had like social planning for building the tower. So the only thing they really thought about was the bicycle shed, to put it out of the building so that people could see coming in and are coming out, because else if the parking garage and the bicycles would be in the building, you could vanish, you know. So that was our... So to sum it, how can we promote interaction within the tower community and between the tower community and the adjacent neighborhood?
So that was the next guiding question, and we addressed this issue by proposing having a coastal tour. So something really low barrier. It addresses the problem of accessibility and the exclusive use of the venues in the tower. We already saw there's this plan of us to have public venues in the tower, but there's still going to be this mental threshold. Oh, maybe I don't live in such a nice building, and I see this fancy tower with this fancy people, and I feel like, oh, I don't belong there. I've never been there. I don't really want to go there. And to reduce these mental thresholds, we want to bring people into the tower, but also bring people to the neighborhood. So the values achieved by that would, of course, be community building of the neighborhood in the towers, but also the people living in the tower with the current residents. And it's mainly for adults, of course. Yeah. So and it's really crucial here to see that it's the same number of tower residents guiding the same number of neighborhood residents. Because the tour, yes, it's nice, but it's only a mean to get this communication. And you cannot communicate if you have one tour guide and 20 people following you. You cannot really have this communication we want to see here, this meaningful interaction. But on the other hand, it's also providing value to the people participating, because they gain information on the neighborhood. I imagine if I would come to live there in such a tower, I want to know where's the best place to buy my dinner, where's the best place to get late at night some cigarettes. I need to know those kind of things. So it would be great if I get to a tour there. And also for current residents to see the tower, what's happening there. Again, lower the threshold and having a conversation with the guides.
So the following question we addressed was, how do we activate vacant space while improving health outcomes? Because we saw that vacant spaces were available, but nothing was really being done with it. Ownership was not really clear, and health facilities were needed. So the problems addressed in this specific part of the plan is the unclear ownership of space, then the vacant and inactive buildings, and perceived lack of healthcare. And then the values achieved are community, inclusion, empowerment through the main guiding theme of care, caring for, tenderness. And then the population served are residents, newcomers, but also the stigmatized and the displaced, who the area originally cared for. So it is important to question the process of value creation of temporary projects, because in Koolzuid a lot of temporary art projects are given a place. But especially in the light of the new tower development, since those temporary projects are often this catalyst for gentrification in the light of new developments. And so here we see this kind of a wishful image of one of the unorthodox care facilities, so the Common Trauma Center. And there you see some images of historical care facilities. So the area had this history of caring for and tenderness for the stigmatized and the community within. And so in 1905, you had a few main health facilities or care facilities. On the corner, you had, for example, the House for the Poor, run by the church. You had several churches. You also had this really nice hospital, church for the seamen, Norwegian seamen, at the Boompjes a bit further. So this whole area was caring for. And then now the red dots are the healthcare facilities, or in general care facilities, and the blue are the vacant buildings, which then could be used in this new framework of moving care facilities, in itself embracing the temporality of interventions within this area, and identifying the empty buildings, then transparent public meetings to actually have this incentive of placing a care facility there, or sort of care facility, and then identifying the core values through the common sort of umbrella of care. And later on you can add more unorthodox stories of care to the history already existing of Koolzuid, and some sort of like stories that could be told are, for example, like the one of Michael, who struggles with intrusive thoughts and anxiety, and from time to time he visits the tender space, which could be the space imagined in this render.
I will talk about how we can transform a children's playground into a healthy, safe haven for the local community and the broader Rotterdam community, so the surrounding neighborhoods. The problems that we addressed within this concept was that there was not enough healthy space, not enough green. Obviously, that's typical because you live in a very crowded city center, but it is a quiet place, as one of my colleagues just explained. So we wanted to create a healthy public space that empowers the people from the neighborhood, but also the surrounding neighborhood, to empower them to community programming, to organize certain stuff. So we were aiming for a physical place as well as community programming. And we wanted to preserve the transcultural identity of the city Rotterdam, because it's a very diverse city. The values that are achieved are the community, health, which is very important, which was also a thing that their upbringing and my upbringing didn't have in common when we were describing where we're from. Empowerment, inclusion, obviously, because everybody needs to feel like they belong, and that is the identity of Rotterdam, I believe. The population that is served, well, the adults in the neighborhood, because they really want to have their own place. They said that the children, they have a place for their own. Obviously, that's all they need. The parents of the children that go to the primary schools, the children from surrounding neighborhoods, and the tower citizens, because we believe, as her concept explained, that we need to bridge these two groups. So the initiative is to create the square, which is called the Landje, het Landje, to Coal Island. It is a concept where the focus is to create a green and multifaceted, tangible public space where the current residents and its visitors are welcomed. The public space will provide facilities, which is it already does, and it strengthens public health and such, and it's a very low barrier space. So the 3 design principles would be a tangible green place, promote collective agency through empowerment, and preserve the transcultural identity of Rotterdam, promote collective agency through subsidies that are given by the gemeente Rotterdam, and that could just make that low barrier for the community to organize certain events. So this is the square, this is what it looks like now, and the children are given it some kind of light, bringing life to it. These are testimonials where people from the neighborhood, the principal of the primary school, and people that work there are talking about that the children that come to play there are mostly 50-50. So 50 from the neighborhood and 50% from outside of the neighborhood. This is the concept which we were thinking of. So to create a roof, which is a public place, and it would kind of unite as well, because from the tower you would look at the roof and that would seem very beautiful. So it doesn't seem like there's it comes two ways, so both seem very very, yeah, beautiful. And to integrate in the tower, oh, sorry. Back. To integrate in the tower sporting facilities for the schools to use as well. So a running track, because the school's using a gym right now, and the gym is very it's very small, and the space is not being used properly. So we wanted to implement this public space, which can also overlap all the other 3 concepts that we spoke about. Our conclusion is that we are convinced that the municipality and building companies would make a democratic spatial policy. They can create sustainable, healthy, pleasant, and interesting city neighborhoods. And to do that, they need to listen to the people that make use of that environment. So not only the people that live there, but also the surrounding neighborhoods, maybe the parents of the children that go to the primary schools. That's our conclusion.
Tony, you want to go first?
Yes, since I have the mic, I'll start. So thank you, team, very much. I know from watching you all week that you all are a team of very strong opinions and personalities and points of view, and it was a real pleasure to watch you all make space for each other to put your strong points of view on the table without conflict. And so it was really nice to see the clarity of your presentations, but more importantly, how they all really were very cohesive around a singular theme of inclusion. But what I also think is very important takeaway from your project is this notion of intentionality. Right, so it's one thing for us to use these abstract terms like we wanted to be inclusive and all of that. I think you've given us really great ideas about like how do you really get people who have lived in the neighborhood for a very long time, and then people coming to live in this new high rise, right? And they can go up to their apartment, go and probably work somewhere else and never really engage with people around them. I think we say we all want mixed income, diverse communities, but we don't do a lot to ensure that there is social connection and social capital built. And I think each of your ideas had the intention to not force that, but to really facilitate it in meaningful ways. The tour, right? So getting people together from the different parts of the neighborhood that would introduce each other to the different aspects of the neighborhood. That's great. Thinking about how to insert public uses into a private building. That's great. They all need healthcare, and so these healthcare pods that pop up, and then public space, right? The place where we can convene. So I think the intentionality with which you used is great. And I think the other thing that was great about your scheme is you proposed an implementation instrument. You said that if you're going to do private development here, that it's going to be facilitated by the public sector through some incentives or so forth, you should give back to this goal. So you've already set this large goal for the neighborhood, and you've already told developers this is how you can contribute to that larger goal. So I thought that was good. My question is, what do you see might be some of the pushback or challenges to achieving that? Do you think new people who live in the tower will resist, or do you think people in the neighborhood will resist? Because it's likely you did this because you sense there's some fear of that. So can you talk about maybe what you think may be some of the challenges to executing this idea?
I think that's best for her to explain because her concepts really integrate.
Well, I'm going to try. Well, I think that that it's possible that it's important to have like the randvoorwaarden. What is that in English? The conditions for the interaction to take place. For example, if you have like a caretaker within a new tower building. Normally it would be like for technical things or so, but maybe it could like be a social cultural caretaker that's so the function with the communication with the neighborhood and within the residents of the tower. So then you have like always also up from the beginning the structure of the building and what it can mean for the neighborhood, but also the use of it.
No, to address the question of pushbacks, I think it's definitely there, because if I would be a tower developer, I don't want to have their public facilities if there's a flat I can sell for $500,000. I think I would rather take the money. But then I think there's a great incentive for the municipality to put such a policy in place, and I think there's also an economic case you can make, because you really can make the case that the neighborhood funded by public money is increasing the value of the tower. And I think you can make that economic case to actually have such a policy in place to force the building companies. I think that's a just thing to do. And on the other hand, of course, there could be pushbacks. If I think about my tours, maybe the tower residents, they just don't want to participate. Then, of course, I would say that's a marketing question.
Thank you.
I think next question.
Maybe one more.
Next question.
Okay, thank you for the presentation as well. I'm very pleased to see that you present one concept actually, and the main intervention, the big intervention, is policy based, right? That's quite an effort, but not undoable. Then there's the intervention on the lower scale, which are pretty much nuanced. I must admit, it's really. Yeah, really more or less programmatic interventions. And I think everybody can imagine something like doing this tour and so forth, and the health focus. What I'm wondering, actually, you started as a group with quite some strong personalities, ideas, and conflicts in thinking about city development. You were given like a tabula rasa. Basically, we said, you can do whatever you want. You can destroy it. You can whatever. What moment did you decide to keep things the way they are in spatial planning, and to start to think about how can we, given this fact, start to do it better, given this condition? Because when did you start to discover the values that are in the plan?
I think from the beginning everybody had their own concept, and I think it was just a way of showing each other that there are bridges between our concepts. I don't think that we from the beginning we already had a concept, so it was never, oh, we're not going to do your concepts, or we're not going to take on your concept. So it was already three separate concepts actually, because I had exams, so I wasn't there, and they already had a concept. So I came in and I was like, okay, these are all really awesome concepts. How can we all combine that? And I think we found bridges as to how to combine these concepts. Maybe not everything is presented, but like the tours can go into the tower, if that was a place to meet up. The roof of the public space could be on the health center, on the roof of the health center. So all of these concepts, they combine, and that was already a thing from the beginning. But I think the struggle in the communication, or there wasn't a struggle in the communication, it was just a collaboration, and we had to find ways on how to bring all these concepts together. So it wasn't really ever a issue, I believe. Yeah.
And I also think, to further answer your question, when we all went into the neighborhood, we felt this big presence of history. And so for us, I don't think that the area was a tabula rasa, because history played a huge part in all of our plans. And so the diversity of the people, which is embedded already like throughout the centuries within that area, but also the history of care, tenderness, being with each other, really expressing yourself, and also the history of it already being a place which is quite quiet and distinct from the busy city center. So in that sense, we all took these observations to our own plans.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we can applaud, right? Thank you, guys.